Hey Camp Pros, today we talk about camp magic and Matt tries to expose me for wearing a diaper as I try to convince you that lying to your campers is sometimes okay.
Okay, we're just kidding. Well, kind of. Tune into this episode to hear 14 plus tips on creating magical and memorable camp experiences for campers so they are dying to come back next year. Welcome to First Class Counselors.
Hello Camp Pros, this is Oliver Greekin, summer camp professional.
And I'm Matt Hansberger, executive producer of podcasting at GoCampPro, and welcome to First Class Counselors.
This is a series for camp directors to give to their counselors as they hire and prepare them for the upcoming summer.
That's right. As we always say, for 2 seasons and 1 episode now, that great camp directors know that our counselors have the key to campers coming back. And if we can equip them with those superhero all-star camp staff skills, then those campers are going to come back year after year. And that's why we're here on First Class Counselors.
So thank you for tuning into the show. We're here to cover one specific topic and cover the essentials as fast as we can.
It's the need to knows.
They can't go without.
The fundamentals.
The basics. So you might be wondering, what are we talking about today? Do you ever wonder why some counselors are next level? You could almost say that they're first class.
Whoa.
How do they create these wondrous moments and stories that campers remember for years to come? How do they make stargazing absolutely incredible, make cabin cleaning an event to look forward to, or theme days completely immersive? In the industry, we call it camp magic. When talking to others, we tell stories, give examples, or use more understandable language. So today, we're defining camp magic and sharing ways to be magical. I like to say that we're in the memory-making business. What can you do to make sure that campers remember their experience at camp?
That's right. And I think that it's just essential that we start off by talking about what is camp magic, because like you said, Oliver, it's a bit of an insider language for us in the industry. People don't really understand what camp magic is. And that's because that is what camp magic is. Do you know how you always, like, if you talk to somebody who's never been to camp before, you're like, okay, I've got to stop explaining this. You really just got to be there to understand it. That's what camp magic is.
Yeah, it's our shorthand. I can't tell you how many conferences or camp professionals or places I've been where we've talked about camp and, oh yeah, it's just the magic. That's such a phrase we use all the time because it is so much easier to say than what we're going to cover in this episode and all the things that we have or will cover when talking about first class counselors.
Right. And so we're going to kind of dissect it a little bit and talk about what goes into camp magic and some pro tips from our years in the industry. But in terms of covering the basics, I think of camp magic as kind of like 2 sides. There's the physical side of camp magic, and that is costumes, characters, dress up, sessions, all of those things that are going to be memorable for kids that they would like actually talk to their parents about. So when they go home and their caregivers at home say, "What did you do at camp?" They're going to be like, "Oh my God, I went into the dining hall and it was completely dressed up as Harry Potter. I put my sorting hat on and I was I'm totally Hufflepuff. That's great. I didn't think I was Hufflepuff, but I love Hufflepuff. Go Hufflepuff!" And they do their chant. Like, that's camp magic in the physical sense. And usually that involves, I think of it like a sensory experience, right? We're engaging their sight, smell, taste, touch, sight, smell, taste, touch. What's the other one? Hearing, sound. Yeah. It involves all of those things, which gives them that memorable experience. And also, I think there's the metaphysical side of camp magic. And that's like the internal feelings that camp gives you. And that happens through the conversations and feeling included and feeling loved. And there's that side of camp magic too. And so we're going to talk a lot about the physical side of things in this episode, because that's what you as a counselor will be able to do more of. But the metaphysical side is usually what's in the culture of the camp, and that's what you as a counselor can support.
Yeah, I think that's really important. You know, we talk about this memorable experience that's coming from it, but this idea of physical versus, metaphysical, I guess, is what you're saying, where it's kind of that unexplained feeling. And I think that also comes from the environment, something that we'll talk about a little bit today. Is it the fact that their mentors are within 10 years of their age? I know that's something that Dr. G has talked about on her show, and just around, you're learning from someone who is a role model, but not an old fogey, which really helps in your growth and development as a kid. And, you don't get that in school. You don't get that in sports. You don't get that in other places. You can get that at camp. You have those people around you who are being mentors for you.
Yeah.
And that really helps in one dimension. The other thing that I like to say with Camp Magic is Camp Magic happens when the basics are covered. That's something that's always been really important for a first class counselor. Camp is not a lot of fun when your camper or you are dehydrated, sunburnt in a dirty cabin, covered in mosquito bites. You can't go to the next level with your campers if you or them are out of commission. So next level is taking these things into consideration when thinking about your day. So think about shade, think about access to water, make sure your backpack has all the necessary tools and equipment that you're going to need for the day. And then most importantly, as a counselor, you need to have a problem solving brain. How am I going to continue making this moment magical for my campers by taking care of their needs essentially right off of the bat? So
that's a good point.
Yeah, I think those are all super important things. And we want to break into just some tips today about things that you can do or areas that you can look at in your daily camp day that will help you become more camp magical or create some more wonder in those moments that campers are, having big moments. So Matt, do you want to kick us off with your first kind of tip?
Yeah, we're going to try and get 14 tips in. That's a lot of camp magic in one episode. And it'll probably be more because we'll remember more as we go, as per usual. But yes, I will certainly kick it off. And this is definitely one of those physical camp magic things and something that I loved to do as a camp staff, still love even as a camp director. That is characters and costumes. And when you can dress up and be a new character, that is one of the easiest ways to jump those kids into a magical world, those campers. And what I would say about that is that you want to commit to that character and that costume. So even, and when I say commit, I don't mean that your costume has to be the most like extensive thing and your character has to have the weirdest accent or way they move, but whoever you are, commit to that character. There is nothing worse than when you are in the middle of the dining hall being this elaborate character and then they take off their wig and they're like, okay, and now it's time for the announcements for the rest of the day. I swear I don't threaten people ever, but listeners, if you are a counselor listening to this and you do that, I will find the camp that you work at and come down and I will remind you of this lesson. Commit to that character until you leave the dining hall, until you are out of eyesight of all of the kids. Don't change out of your costume. Don't break that character in front of them. Even the older kids, I think some people think it's going to feel silly, but even the older kids will buy into it. Little kids really will, but the older kids will still buy into it if you commit to that character. And my favorite tip here is to get a coworker in on it. So if Oliver's my co-counselor and I leave to go become Mr. Swashbuckling Pirate, and then I am in character and I leave the dining hall, get changed and come back, Oliver can be like, hey, Matt, where'd you go? I was like, I'm sorry, I really had to go to the bathroom and I wasn't feeling well, so I went to see the nurse. He's like, well, I'm glad you're back. Good to see you. And the kid's like, Matt, you were the pirate. And Oliver's like, guys, Matt is not a pirate. He can't be a pirate. And just getting that fun dynamic into it can help you really commit and help commit those campers to that magical world.
Yeah, you had two tips in one. I think the secret, give my co an alibi tip.
Oh yeah,
always be covering them. I always think that's really important. You give that camp magic alive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna kind of go in the same category as you. We're talking about costumes, right?
Mm.
So A is just have a costume, right?
Yeah.
In the giant scheme of things, if your camp has a theme, even if it's not part of your camp culture yet to have costumes, where I've definitely talked to camp pros where they're like, my camp doesn't really dress up on theme days. Dress up anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Be the weird kind of counselor who does that. And, if you're an outlier, we all know that outliers are typically noticed much better than the common points. So you're going to be seen right there and then if you're wearing the kilt, if you're wearing a Scooby-Doo costume, if you're in the inflatable dinosaur running around with the little arms, you're going to get noticed, and those create memories right off the bat. You're also moving a culture forward where, maybe the next theme day, somebody else is going to come with a costume. So I think that's really important. But the thing that I also want to emphasize is think about how you're going to go about dressing up. This can be really useful. So, you go to the local CVS or dollar store and you can buy a pack of adult diapers. every single one of your friends can become a crew from the Rugrats, You know, someone can be Tommy, someone can be Angelica, you know, the twins can show up, the whole crew can be there ready to go. And that was a pack of adult diapers and a blue t-shirt. You're good to go. Uh, and it's so simple sometimes to try and think of these costumes too much that sometimes you just got to take it back a notch and say, all right, what's the easiest costume I can do? Or what is something I already have that I can put into use to make this costume happen? A trip to Goodwill or a trip to your parents' closet. That's not to be offensive to parents out there, but you know, a trip to those kind of old timey clothes can sometimes help. I know that I have a rain jacket that I stole from my mother that is now my Inspector Gadget, you know, jacket if I ever need it, or
Yep.
my, you know, Sherlock Holmes jacket. It is this really old jacket that she didn't care about or use anymore, and it now is a, you know, PI investigator jacket whenever I need one in the short term. So, and on a side note, save some costumes. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I am a camp director now and happy that I have a entire closet full of costumes at the ready. So as time has gone on, you can call me up and I'll be ready to go with a themed costume for you.
You're ready for Halloween.
Of course, always. I have, you know, 10 costumes at the ready. So I'm ready for any Halloween bash. Matt, what's another tip you got?
Yeah, my favorite. Just one note about costumes. One of my favorite things is just asking, like, getting your camp director, or if there's a camp director listening to this episode, just ask your community for things like that, to start building out a costume closet. Because later on in this season, we're going to talk about how to affordably be a camp pro or a first class counselor. So try to get some of those things from your community members. I know one of the most used costumes, and I'll even say it by me, were some of Beth Topaz Allison. So Beth from, you know, Camp Code GoCampPro fame. She donated all of her bridesmaids dresses to the costume closet, and those were the most used. Probably more like the key demographics that were used were like young, like Pee-wee camper girls and the adult men on staff were the two people that used those and like tried to fit into those dresses. So like anything can be a costume, and it's and I like the idea of like reusable costumes too. You're not just like buying things once to throw it away. So
Yeah.
good for that thing as well.
Yeah, a quick tip for directors while we're in this is
Mhm.
directors call up costume shops that might be in your area. If you're in an area that might have a large movie set, they usually will be more lenient towards donating some of the stuff they don't want to keep in their warehouses. Or also, like Matt was just hitting up, after prom season is over, there's a lot of leftover dresses that people are just trying to get rid of. And that's always a really good excuse to get something that, you know, can get into your costume closet and be used at some point for whatever your theme was. And if you're doing that stuff in the fall before maybe you're setting your themes, that way maybe the thing that you get the most costumes for becomes your theme for the next summer, and it's kind of a predetermined. That's a little one for directors there. But Matt, do you have one for counselors?
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of another like character thing, and I would give you the tip to exaggerate. And I know that seems like a really basic tip, but it's not something we're all naturally good at. When I teach music lessons on the side is one of my many side gigs, and often if you're a musician out there and you want someone to play a part of the music louder, if it says forte or play loudly, sometimes if people are new to instruments, they might be a little timid to play it loudly, or they might think it's embarrassing. In the same way that if you're a character, if you're supposed to be loud and like boisterous and obnoxious as a character, you have to be that times 10 because of a dining hall. So the tip that I would give you is be more than you think you should. In those music lessons, I say to those kids, I want you to play this section of music. I want you to blow my eardrums out. Play as loud as you can. And often they just play it where I wanted them to. They play it as loud as I wanted them to do it in the first place. So go times 10. I would rather, as a camp director, I would rather tell a staff to tone it down than for the kids to miss it because you're too quiet, or they don't buy into the experience because you're not big enough. So exaggerate is my second tip.
Yeah. An add-on tip to that is I always see people whenever they get onto stage, they don't have a stage presence. They find a spot and they sit to it. And typically what I'll advise counselors to do is try and work the whole stage, and then try and get your fingertip to fingertip. Have your arms spread out like a giant T, and then that way you're using the entirety of your body when you're up there on stage. So if you're screaming, shouting, and being that exaggerant person, it really helps put the stage to life.
Yeah.
But my next tip is going to be to decorate your cabin. I see this happen at a lot of camps. They have a theme for the week, and each cabin gets their own mini theme on top of it. Sometimes camps don't pick themes for the cabin, and counselors can just do it themselves. I know that I've done Peter Pan themes, you know, the idea that we're the Lost Boys and we're never going to grow up has always been a popular one that I've seen, but I've talked about doing a taco themed one on the show before. It can really be whatever you want, and you can take it to the next level. And to do that, don't think just streamers and posters, right? Don't just think that you should head out to the dollar store or Party City and get the cheapest things that you can to just hang up, because in 2-3 days with the humidity and the heat of summer, those streamers are going to sag, they're going to rip, they're going to make your cabin kind of look trashy after a few days. So really think about ways that you can kind of next level the decorations in your cabin. So one that I really love that I have seen before is we did a Disney theme. The cabin got the Little Mermaid as their theme, and one of the things the counselors did was they got a cup or a mug from the dining hall and a bunch of forks, and they stuck it in there, and they put a little card on it that said dingle hoppers for combing hair. And if you have ever seen the Little Mermaid, she combs her hair with a fork, and that was a physical decoration that was there. The girls combed their hair with it. The cabin really enjoyed it, and it was another something that added to that theme. Now, of course, there was, you know, the sea blues or sea greens all over the cabin. They really took it to the next level with decorating. But it was something like that that can stick around. It's there. It's a little bit more permanent, and it really does say, hey, this cabin is Disney themed, and it's going to be Disney themed from day one of camp to the last day of camp. And that's something that's really enjoyable. If you want to look for ideas like that, honestly, the best place to go, Pinterest. Go into Pinterest, search Disney decorations, party ideas, or Lord of the Rings, or whatever the theme is. Take it to the next level. Or just think of things that you use in that theme, right? So like, for example, Disney, she uses a fork to comb her hair. You can do the same thing. And it really does take your cabin from, oh, cool, nothing. Oh, cool, welcome poster. Oh, cool, streamers and some posters on the wall. To, oh, cool, this entire cabin is themed to, you know, whatever the theme of the week is. And then lastly, it doesn't have to just be the theme of the week. It can be a theme for you and your co-counselors, right? You can put a bio of yourselves up on the wall. You can have a giant poster. I know we had a great counselor at a camp that I previously worked at, and he put up a giant 7-foot poster of a baseball player that he really liked that took up pretty much the whole wall. And it was just a really amazing way for him to be like, I'm into baseball, and this guy's my favorite player. And it was really funny because the kids would talk to that poster like he was a person in the cabin, and it was just something that took it to the next level. So think about putting something up on the walls or putting something up in your cabin that makes it look awesome. You know, theme those bunk tags, whatever it might be, and it really does help set the mood for what camp's supposed to be.
Oh, that's super cool. And I bet you, Oliver, because that counselor, the Little Mermaid counselor, was a first class counselor, they totally asked permission before using the mug and the forks from the dining hall first, right?
Yeah, 100%. The dining hall manager there, she was a very big stickler on making sure she didn't lose anything. So whenever you took something, you asked for permission, and you made sure it made its way back at the end of the session.
Right. Just a good rule in general.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm actually pretty sure that the girls got to decorate their dingle hoppers and take them home with them, though.
Oh, so cool.
Which was really cool. It was just an added thing that they got to do, because that's why it sticks out in my memory, is because they were able to do that. And it's just an amazing little added memory and a take-home item that helps keep that magic alive.
That's like a shout out to the best dining hall managers out there, right? There are certain ones that are just awesome. And if you as a counselor can make friends with a dining hall manager, you'd be surprised how many awesome like baking sessions or like cool things like that. If you are kind and always scrape your plates the right way and those kinds of things, you can make a friend and they will help you make magic.
Oh yeah. The great camps are when everybody on the team, whether it's the program staff, the dining hall manager, or the maintenance staff, or whoever else is involved in making camp happen understands that they're all part of that experience, right? Everybody has a hand in making campers have an amazing time. But we'll keep going through our tips. And Matt, can you give us your next one?
Certainly. I would say this is a great kind of segue of the like keep your coworkers happy as you're creating magic. And one is my tip is to respect the schedule, but don't squander an opportunity. And what I mean by that is you could be doing the most magical thing, but if your kids are late for lunch and you haven't told anybody, then you could have a missing camper drill on your hand. Or if you're out in the same thing, if you're out in the middle of the woods and you haven't told people where you're going, and you're missing the activity, you could be holding the whole camp up while the all camp game is waiting to happen. So make sure you follow the camp schedule. And when I say don't squander an opportunity, I mean, if you think the moment that you think, oh my gosh, this could go for 2 hours and the kids are going to like go crazy, that's your time to use your co-counselor to run down and ask the director if you can miss the all camp game, knowing that the answer could be no, and that's fine, but at least you've given the opportunity to extend that magic and you're not hurting the rest of camp. So just keep the rest of camp in mind. And along with not squandering an opportunity, I've seen way too many times camp staff wait until the very, very last day to do something awesome. And then it's the last day. Why aren't you doing things awesome the whole week, or why not do it on a Wednesday? But B, if the last day it rains or the program staff surprise camp with something, something fun, and all of a sudden you don't have time to do that, then you've missed that opportunity. So respect the schedule, don't wait, don't squander an opportunity would be my third 3.5-ish tip.
There you go. Yeah, we're definitely getting up there with our tips. All right. For something that I think is really important, and it goes a little bit into that being a character, but I think embracing the weird. Many people get caught up in themes like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Disney because they are camp cool. It's really easy to lean into those themes. Mm-hmm. But strange at camp works. The weirder something is, sometimes the more fun it is. A theme that I really remember enjoying once was everybody was farmers, and as a joke, every family had a backstory. Some of them were dairy farmers or berry farmers, and some were high-end farmers, and others were dirty mud farmers. But it caught fire, right? It was something weird and strange that counselors just went, oh, let's do this. Let's go for it. And the dairy farmers were running around and they were mooing at every single competition because they wanted to call for their cows as backup or have the spirit of the cow inside of them. The berry farmers were trying to sell their famous lingonberry jam to anyone who would take it. And I would get spoonfuls of jam stuffed into my face, saying like, hey, you've got to try our lingonberry jam. You got to give it a taste. And you can definitely do this with any theme that's presented to you. It's that inner joke that you can have with your cabin. It's sometimes bowing out and not taking the cool path of camp, but taking the original path that maybe others haven't tried before. So if you do get stuck with, and not stuck with because it's not a bad thing, but if you do have the Star Wars theme, maybe you be the Ewoks, right? The little teddy bears that run around, or maybe if you're in the Disney theme, if you can, you find the most obscure Disney movie you can think of, and that's what your cabin is going to be really going home on, because it makes that inner joke and it makes that embracing of the weird that maybe your cabin didn't expect in the first place. So those are nice little ways to make some magical moments, because everyone remembers Luke Skywalker, but does everyone remember C-3PO? I mean, yeah, they do. C-3PO is pretty cool,
yeah.
But he's not the hero of the story, if you know
right.
what I mean. So when your cabin becomes the C-3PO cabin, you might become the cool cabin.
Yeah, I like that. I like that going for the unique side of things. And I think too often, even in like camp magic and things like programming, like everyone, depending on how your camp and what your policies are around kitchen raids, like everyone does a kitchen raid. Like it's not unique anymore. We could get into kitchen. I think I might have ranted about kitchen raids in a past episode already, but going for that unique thing is great. I would say for my fourth tip, I'll say that remembering the metaphysical side of camp magic as well. And that magic comes in the conversations and the connections of how we make kids feel while they're at camp. And that is by truly recognizing either something unique about a camper or a connection that you have between the two of you, or making sure they feel included or that they're making new friends, because that the magic is something that they can't necessarily get while they're not at camp. We don't know what their home lives are like. So if we can give them the best camp opportunity we can, then camp becomes a magical place for them in and of itself. And to tie this like kind of metaphysical thing to something physical, one of the things that we made the requirements when I was at Pierce was that you can decorate your cabin however you want, but every single door needed to have door tags on them. So on the door, you just need to have their names on an individual tag. And that could be theme related. So if it was Little Mermaids, you could have different like coral with their names on it or something like that. But to say like, this is this person's cabin. And then as soon as they see that door, it's theirs. They feel welcome and feel included in that. And that kind of camp magic doesn't come from dollar stores. It doesn't come from CVS's, Dollaramas, as we call them here in Canada. It comes from the way that you are every single day with your campers.
No, yeah, exactly. Camp is so much that metaphysical, like we talked about at the very beginning of the show. For me, my next little tip in something I think I've definitely talked about before is the inner secret or the inner mission of your camper or your cabin, right? So this could be a mystery that you need to solve. I have always really enjoyed that, where, what's the secret? What's the secret of the camp director, right? So like one time I was a robot for a bunch of girls, and I think I've talked about this before as well. And it was all about, I never slept. And if I was on low battery, I would have to charge myself. So one time the cabin snuck down and saw me, putting a charger in my ear so that it looked like I was charging. And every single day I would have a red button painted on the back of my neck that said on, off, so that I could be turned on and off, because I was a robot and we were keeping that secret from all the campers. And it was a lot of fun for me as a camp director because it got me involved with kids, but also it was a lot of fun for for the campers. They got really involved in it and really enjoyed it. And, they would take an entire, hour and a half for their cabin challenge and spy on me, try and figure out where I was, what I was doing. And I still have this book that they made that was proving that I was a robot, that they then, stood in front of camp and said, we would like to prove that Oliver is a robot. Here are the reasons why.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think that's just such an amazing thing that you can do, where this cabin knows something nobody else does, or this cabin is trying to figure something out that isn't part of the core curriculum of camp, right? It's not just going to archery, or it's not just going to boating. It's, there's a secret treasure that's hidden on camp, or there's a bowling alley under the dining hall, or there's a secret snack drawer that's kept in the dining hall that, you got to break into and get the code for. And it's, it's creating a little bit extra magic, but it's coming from that inner, it's just us, you guys. It's just us. And it creates that connection. I know of a great story that another camp professional talks about, Scott Arizala. He talked about how he did a treasure hunt, right? And eventually they found a treasure chest, and inside that treasure chest, they all became part of the wolf pack. And, he ran into one of those campers 10, 15 years later, and they told him how he was a member of the wolf pack. And it, that's that inner magic. That's that inner secret. That's that little group that makes them a little bit tighter. And you can also, the previous speaker at the ACA Tri-State, her book is all about, I'm trying to remember her name and her book right off the cuff right now. And Matt's
Priya Parker, The Art of Gathering.
There we go. Priya Parker, The Art of Gathering. She does talk about this, about how when a group forms, they form based off of a common similarity that they have. That they connect over that point. And if you as a counselor can give them that connection point, it really helps with creating that magic.
Well, I'll throw in, there's a nice like PDF kind of summary of Priya's things when it comes to like how to create an intentional and awesome gathering. I'll throw that in the show notes for you to check out. Oliver, can you leave that note on the Google Doc for me, please?
Will do.
Thank you, sir. I'll jump into my next tip while you're doing that. And I think giving kids choice is something that I believe in so strongly. And so if the most opportunities that we can give kids choice and help them design some of that experience, I think can be a great little hack for getting them excited about and make your program memorable. So I recently just finished my first ever Dungeons and Dragons campaign with a couple camp professionals, and we did what's called Kids on Bikes. And the Kids on Bikes model was very much like we kind of designed it as we went, and then Nick, as our GM or our DM, just kind of like created the world and still got us where we wanted to go, but we really got to choose along the way. So if you can do that in your programming and give kids choice to help build the magic, then that can be a great little tip for making it memorable. And you can still do it. You can still get from your cabin to the beach, but the kids can decide how to get there, and they can decide like what, if you're secret agents and trying to sneak from place to place, they can be the leader and just like, you know, where is the video surveillance system that you all need to avoid, and how do you need to do that? That'd be I would love that. I would do that as an adult, and I would love it.
All right, my next tip here is your talent. It may seem cheesy, and it definitely is when you look at those camp counselors who walk around with a ukulele or a guitar or fiddlesticks or a hacky stack, or, you know, drawing chart where they can pull out and just draw on the spot. These things kind of sometimes put that counselor in a box, like that's the artsy counselor or that's the sportsy counselor. And yes, granted, if it's something that counselor enjoys, that's the box they fit in sometimes. Obviously they're a person and can divulge from that. But it's also important that they have something that they can entertain their campers with at any time, right? It's just saying, hey, I'm always open to do something. I'm always open to try something, have some fun with you. Some other ones that I've seen are counselors have just a ball, like a soccer ball or a football that they like to have in their backpack, a deck of cards, whether it's playing cards, like 52 cards with hearts, spades, and clubs and diamonds, or trading cards, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon. These are things that kids enjoy, and if you're a counselor has them, you can always be playing. I knew a great counselor who had a book of short stories, and they would have that, and during free times they would literally go to a spot and start reading aloud, and kids would gather, sit down, and just listen to them read because they were such a great interactive reader. These are such good things, and yeah, it does seem cheesy at times to be the book counselor or to be the, you know, ukulele counselor, whatever it might be, but it's also really cool. You become an awesome counselor. So if you're a first-time counselor and you're looking at some of these counselors, they have them because it works. It makes them a better counselor. It makes them a first-class counselor, and that's what's really great about it. So even if you don't have a talent, find something that you want to try and learn, and that's also something that you can teach campers. You can say, I wanted to learn how to blank this summer. I wanted to learn how to hacky sack or juggle, and guess what? Kids learn right next to you.
That's great. Cool. All right, my next tip is to be and teach the just say yes mentality, right? There's the classic stand-up comedy rule is to say yes to everything. And again, going with giving kids choice, if you can do that and say yes to whatever is going on, and if you can embrace that with your cabin as a whole, then they're more likely to go along with things. And a way that you can practice this is you can, if you have maybe 10 minutes as some downtime, transition time, you can play the game Yes, Let's with your cabin. And basically you just stand in a circle and one kid says, we are all dinosaurs, and the whole cabin together says, yes, let's, and then everyone is a dinosaur and you can count to 10 seconds and you bring them back, and the next kid says, now we're dinosaurs on skateboards, and you can add to it. But the point is you say yes, let's to everything. And, you know, sometimes kids might take that as an opportunity to do something a little offside, but you can redirect it and bring it back and still say yes, let's. And that will help them be more on board with those kind of either the weird choices or just other people taking on leadership and help buy them into that magical world.
Yeah, I love yes. I call it yes and because I come from an improv background,
Yeah.
which is how we practice it. But I love it because, you know, it opens you up for anything, and it opens your cabin to start doing, you know, your kids just saying, oh yeah, let's do it. You know, it just breeds off of it, which is phenomenal.
Sorry, pause for a second. Do you do improv, Oliver?
I have done improv. I've also done things like stand-up comedy. I used to be quite a funny guy.
So you're still a funny guy, but so there's two things. That one, I need to see a video of A, you doing stand-up comedy, and B, I think the Rugrats costume, it sounds like you were a part of that, and I would like photo evidence. And maybe our listeners would too. If you want photo evidence or video evidence of either of these things, email me, matt@GoCamp.pro, and maybe we can petition Oliver to do it.
I thankfully do not have a picture of myself as a Rugrats character. But if enough people email you, maybe I'll just dress up.
If this episode gets 1,000 downloads, Oliver will dress up in a blue t-shirt and an adult diaper.
Yeah.
His words, not mine.
Little bowling cap on and everything. All right. My next tip is making it a story. I think this is really important whenever you're trying to get your campers into something. It's making sure that there's something that has a driving force to it. So, Matt talked a little earlier about giving an alibi to your counselor when they walk away. And those are mini stories that you can have. And I think that's phenomenal. But also having a bigger story for your cabin, you know, and developing these stories is not as hard as you might think. A really easy way to do this is if you've ever been an English major or you've just cared about writing fiction or story writing, you can use person verse, which is such an amazing way. So you say person versus person, or person versus environment, or person versus society, or person versus nature, or person versus superior being, or person versus self. There's a lot of different ones. I think I just hit the 7 core ones, but this is a way that you can come up with a story kind of on the spot, or, you know, to work into your theme for the week. You know, have something that you're working against, have that conflict that your campers want to defeat or overcome. It's such a great way to give a driving force to something that allows your campers to have an extra phenomenal experience. You know, if your answer is just cause, then you're not going to get the same response from your campers as, you know, no, we have to fight this person because this superior being is going to eliminate all of the trash that is in the cans of camp and going to throw it all over the place and litter and create this dirty environment that we all have to live in and cause global warming. You know, that's riffing it. But for some reason, it just works with kids, and they just start going, man, trash all over camp? That would be awful. I don't want to have to pick that up. So they want to, you know, step up and take the next step. So make it a story, make it something believable. Or even unbelievable, and your kids will remember it even better.
Yeah, that's great. I remember reading, I was doing some marketing work, and I was reading about how to use stories as part of your marketing, and I think it totally applies here. I'll post an article in the show notes about stories and the 7 common story archetypes, and how it's about marketing. But I think for you as a counselor, this is totally a great way to build those compelling narratives and themes. So the article talks about overcoming the monster, rags to riches, the quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, rebirth. All of these are stories to integrate into your camp programs, or you know, camp directors listening into your marketing for sure. But for a counselor, even like I said, from point A to point B, rags to riches, you can totally make that happen for 10 minutes, and kids will kind of buy into that story. And I like what you said, Oliver, that just because, not good enough. Not for first class counselors, that's for sure. Okay, last tip from me. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. This is great. Last tip is just remembering that magic is all around us in nature. And I think a big part of that is just helping kids be curious and ask questions when it comes to nature. And there's a great resource and kind of philosophy of teaching kids outside called coyote mentoring. And a big part of that is actually not answering kids' questions, but getting them to ask more questions. So if they're looking at a moth and they're like, okay, well, what color, you ask them, what color is the moth? And they say, oh, it's brown. And you say, okay, why might it be brown? And they say, I don't know. But like, okay, well, how does this help them? Or those kinds of things, and getting them to be curious. And for me, I have a really strong connection with nature. And I think that's because at camp, my counselors often push me to not just know the name of an eastern white pine tree, but knowing that an eastern white pine tree is one of the best climbing trees. So that, and me now as an adult, I walk through the forest and I see the low kind of dead branches of an eastern white pine. I know it's that, not because I just learned it out of a textbook, it's because I've climbed them before.
There you go. My last one is time off or responsibilities are an illusion. They don't exist. I know that at some camps, sometimes it's a very visual thing and a very spoken thing that counselors take time off. And I'm totally fine if a camper is coming up to you and being like, are you going on time off? You can be honest with them. You can say, yeah, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important that your campers don't think that they are the stress. They are what causes you to need time off. Time off and the responsibilities of being a counselor are a natural part of what you're doing. If you enjoy your job, let your campers know that. Like, you enjoy being there. You want to be a part of this. But, openly talking about what your time off is going to be like, or openly, talking about the stresses of the job, or saying that, a camper is a little bit more difficult than other campers, or takes a little bit more of your attention. These things are things that you want to avoid. You are meant to be a mentor and a caregiver for the kids, but you're not meant to teach them that or educate them that this is a job and you are stressed out sometimes and you are killing yourself. You want to try to eliminate that, because part of their experience is enjoying themselves. And if anyone feels like they're a hindrance on another human being, typically that might ruin their experience of what they're trying to have. So I do advise counselors to, hide or make an illusion over the fact that they might not always be at 100% all the time, and it's a tough one to say, because you want to give a balance of, this is the real world. These are things that as you grow up, you experience, but also understanding that the experience that your campers are here for is not to know that you're stressed out, tired, overworked, underpaid, that time off is the only godsend that they get in every week. So it is your job as a first class counselor sometimes to hide that a bit, but also kind of be honest about it. You can open up a bit.
Yeah, it's such a tough balance too, right? Because like showing kids healthy boundaries, and that like it's okay to have a break from things. Because if a kid asks you like, man, I'm really tired, I really need a break, can I not play the wide game? You're not gonna be like, no, because and we all need breaks sometimes from things. And I like what you said, Oliver, about being honest sometimes too, and being like, yeah, this is a chance for me to recharge so that I can be super excited for the rest of the day, because I do this every day all summer and I love it. And it makes me a little bit tired sometimes. So I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to come back and be really excited about this. And I think the point overall, I think sometimes when we try to like really hide it, and I really think we shouldn't lie to kids, like saying like, oh, I'm going to do my paperwork. Like, I don't know, that doesn't cut it for me, because A, we're lying to kids, and B, yeah, I don't know. I don't love that, because we want kids to feel like we want to hang out with them and want to play with them. And being honest, I think, is really important there.
Yeah, I think there's a balance. You have to make sure there's a just cause for not having to bring it up all the time, right? For an example, don't put your time off schedule in a posted area where everyone walks by it every single day, and then kids get to go, oh, so-and-so is off on this day, or so-and-so is off on that day.
Yeah.
And what happens is they start to see, oh, this is a job that my counselors are doing all the time. You need to make sure that you're giving them the idea that their counselor is just somewhere else for that time that they might be off, right? If if a kid's counselor is only off for, the night from dinner till, 11 o'clock, campers might not really notice. They might think they're off doing something else. If you're not bringing it up, they'll just kind of go about camp normally.
Yeah.
And if you're off for a day, maybe it's, they are going to see their mom. I mean, that's not always a good thing to bring up, but maybe they're going to, maybe they're going to see a friend of theirs, or maybe they are going to get some camp game ready. Not specifically lying, but you don't have to always say, oh, they're on time off, is sometimes a good way to say it.
And this is one of those times, I think, as we often say, is like, divert to what your camp wants you to do in this case. And because it clearly, we've talked about this for a couple of minutes now, it's a deep conversation. And I don't necessarily think there's a right or a wrong answer, but above all of these things, follow your camp's policy to make sure you're being consistent with what other staff are doing, I think.
Okay.
Oliver, on that note, I have a question for you. I saw that you are part of this new GoCampPro 5-Minute Fridays program. Is that true?
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you you got your first videos like last week or 2 weeks ago? What do you think about it so far?
Well, I really enjoy getting them because as a camp pro, I'm looking for any quick, simple solution for me to learn more about camp. I will put on our podcast and listen to my wonderful voice whenever I can. But when I get to hear from other camp professionals in a very quick, immediate way, I can write that idea down, keep it in my back pocket, and have it ready for when I get into leading summer.
Yeah, we're like 45 minutes into this episode already, and we've covered a lot of tips, but I don't always have 45 minutes. So the 5-Minute Friday program from GoCampPro is that little short dose of inspiration to help you stay inspired through what is really a tough year. So if you want to find out more about 5-Minute Fridays, head to gocamp.pro/5MF. That's the number 5MF. And you can find out more about how to get your weekly emails, your weekly dose of inspiration straight to your inbox. Thank you for this ad time, Oliver. I appreciate it.
No problem. It's a great thing. All right. But on our show, let's talk a little bit about how to make these magical moments happen in a really quick way so that people can walk away here with not just the wonderful examples we gave before, but also how are they going to walk down the camp street tomorrow and say, all right, cool, I'm ready to do this.
All right, yeah, let's do it. I just have 2 quick tips here. I think it's a great way to end it up. Just the reality of camp magic. That sometimes you're going to need help. You can't plan all the things you want to do by yourself. So asking for help from program staff or section heads or directors, they can help you do some of the things, but they might also have ideas of ways to amp it up and make it ways you've never thought of. The second thing here is remembering that it's going to take more time than you think to make it happen. Decorations take longer to cut out. You might be distracted. Costumes will take longer to find. So just make sure you budget a little extra time.
I think it's important, talk to your co-counselor, make sure that you're checking in with them and saying maybe at the beginning of the week, hey, what are we going to do to make this week special? What's our grand idea? Are we theming our cabin? What's our inner secret going to be? Because you as a counselor can kind of dictate those things ahead of time. So when campers arrive, that first night, you can tell the story of the buried treasure, or you can get them amped for something that might be coming later in that week. And then the next thing is, find out what your camp is equipped with. What can you use? We talked earlier about going to the food services manager and saying, hey, can I borrow some forks to make some dingle hoppers to put in my cabin for my girls to comb their hair? And that's a great resource right there. But it's, what's in your costume closet? What can your food service manager help you with? Like, can you ask them to make a treat for your cabin one night, or have that stuff available to you? Can you ask maybe the property director or one of the maintenance staff members, hey, can you take a bunch of random spare parts you have, glue it all together, spray paint it gold, and I can have an award to give to my campers at the end of the week? It could be an old broom and you're giving them the golden broomstick for keeping the cabin clean. And for you who might not be tool savvy, that might take a little bit of time, but for a property manager who has all the stuff there, it might take them 10 minutes to put that together, spray paint it, and have it ready for you. Right. And they get to get rid of some of the trash bits that they have laying around in their property closet or garage that they need to kind of clear out a bit. And they like being a part of that program. So find out the resources that you have, how to use them a little bit. And those questions can usually be asked during staff training.
That's great. And I think asking for permission, again, just a reminder of those things, and remembering that sometimes the answer is going to be no to use those things, right? Camps have budgets, they have reasons why they might not be able to. So don't think that it's just because someone doesn't want to. It could be because that the kitchen has a tight budget this year and can't afford to lose any more forks. And that's just a reality. And remember that as a first class counselor, you can be creative with a bunch of sticks. I bet you can make dingle hoppers out of some sticks if that's what you need to do.
Yeah, that's that time part as well. It's
Yeah.
making sure that other people on camp are just as busy as you. They might not always be in direct care of campers, but they have responsibilities that they got to handle as well. So know you're asking a favor and be appreciative of it if you are asking someone to go out of their way for your cabin. But also be creative yourself, and you can do some amazing stuff with your own hands. All right, Matt, we're going to start something this year. We did it in our last episode. We're keeping it going for this one, but we want to make sure that people are walking away with some type of a trick or a tip or a game or a song that they can use after the episode, right? They can walk away and they can start singing a song or playing a game that's a lot of fun. So we're going to be introducing, or we have introduced, our Eggle time, which is our ever growing, ever learning segment. So Matt, do you want to kick us off with our Eggle for this episode?
Yes, totally. You might have heard me in past episodes saying that I love music and things. So this is my quick one for you. It's a 4-part rap song. So it's a rap in 4 parts, and you can do it in a round as well. So Oliver, we're gonna live. Do you want to try this one with me? Okay, so
This is
simple.
gonna go well.
Just repeat after me. Did you pack? Did you pack? Did you pack the ticky tack?
Did you pack? Did you pack? Did you pack the ticky tack?
Great. That's part 1. Part 2 is the ticky, pack, pack the ticky.
The ticky, pack the ticky.
Did you pack the ticky tack?
Did you pack the ticky tack?
Good. And then what happens is you get the whole dining hall doing it, or the whole campfire circle, and you do it in 4 parts. So it's did you pack, did you pack, did you pack the ticky tack? Did you pack, right? And it goes in 4 parts, and then it creates this really cool rapping kind of thing. And that is my Eggle for this week, ticky tack.
All right. I love round songs. They're always fantastic because it just sounds cool as it moves across the, the dining hall or the stadium or the arena or whatever you're in. It's always amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, we're going to play a quick game, and it's probably a game that people have played or seen before. It's called the questions game. It's very simple. We are going to trade questions back and forth, and the first person that says something that is not a question will lose today. A great way to play this game is maybe you're walking down the trail, and you can get all your campers to stand in the line. The first person in the line and the second person in the line play the question game as they walk. And if the person who wins either gets to stay in the front line or goes to the back of the line if they lose.
Nice.
So it's a nice way to keep your campers a little bit organized, play a game as you're walking. You can also just play it without the line and just enjoy playing the game against 2 people. You can do it up on stage. You can do it just for fun. It's a universal game. So Matt, because you are the new person to this game, although I'm sure you've probably played before, I'm going to let you lead off, and you can ask the first question.
Okay, are you ready to play?
Would you like to play with me?
Well, I'm here, aren't I?
Didn't you show up?
Okay, you got me. I'm messing with the improv master here, right? Like,
it is an improv game. It is, so it does come from that world. But yeah, no, it's phenomenal. It's a great game, and you'll see once your campers get really good at it, you can get maybe 20, 30 questions in a row of them just going back and forth really, really quickly.
Totally.
But that's my Eggle for the day. That's our Eggles that we've shared. And for now, let's close out the show. Thanks for sticking with us, everybody.
All right, perfect. So thanks everyone for tuning in. As always, make sure you are reaching out if you have any questions. If you want to get a hold of me, my email is matt@gocamp.pro, or you can find me at iscus, ISCUS, on Instagram. Oliver, how about you?
All right, if you want to get a hold of me, I'm using the email oliver.gregan.scd@gmail.com. So the SCD is for Summer Camp Director, so you can get a hold of me on that email.
That's awesome.
All right. So if you enjoyed today's show, we would be so grateful if you left us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast. Your ratings and reviews not only help tell us what you'd like to hear about or what you didn't like about the show, but it helps boost our rankings and helps more people discover.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is send this show to somebody who might not listen. If you want to share some Camp Magic tips with them, that'll be the best way to help us out. And if you want to find our show notes, please do so at camphacker.tv/FCC or GoCamp.pro/FCC, and you'll find all of our notes and more links to other podcasts that GoCampPro is doing out there.
Thanks for listening, friends. And remember, camp is camp and camp's all good.